Good afternoon, everyone. Dan's opening referring to Earth Day and solar panels on the White House reminded me that I helped organize the Earth Day at Michigan State University in April 1970, about a week after the first one at the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor. And I participated in that one as well, so that's a few years ago. And the solar panels on the White House, of course, were installed by Jimmy Carter. Ronald Reagan took them off later, as you remember. But I'm proud to have worked for Jimmy Carter.
Amen.
I'm going to use a script because we have a lot of details to get to. I am Rupert Cutler of Roanoke. I'm a concerned individual, speaking as an individual and not as an organizational representative, although I am a member of the Sierra Club and the Appalachian Trail Conservancy. To begin with, I respectfully suggest that you take a good look around you the next time you're driving on I-81 or the Blue Ridge Parkway, or hiking the Appalachian Trail or one of the trails in the Jefferson National Forest wilderness areas, or running or biking along the River Greenway. By focusing on the nearby mountains or on the river, you'll see devastated private home sites and farms, scarred public forests, degraded Appalachian Trail and Parkway views, a muddy river unsuitable for canoeing and fishing, and a city drinking water source requiring major treatment before we'd want to drink it. The Mountain Valley Pipeline crosses the Roanoke River and its tributaries more than 120 times, and we see the evidence of that work downstream. In my view, these conditions are evidence of a legal system that has failed most of us. They represent the public cost of the heedless and reckless construction of the privately owned Mountain Valley Pipeline project. This obvious damage demonstrates major shortcomings in our current web of applicable federal and state laws and regulations. How could we have allowed this ill-conceived project to get so far along? How could the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission have approved it? Why hasn't the court injunction stopped it in its tracks before now? The Sierra Club is seeking to vacate that permit now. Its co-petitioners or partners in the litigation are Wild Virginia, Appalachian Voices, Preserve Bent Mountain, Defenders of Wildlife, Center for Biological Diversity, and the Chesapeake Climate Action Network. Much irreversible damage already has been done. Some future damage can be averted. Lessons should be learned that, if applied through new corrective legislation and regulations, should prevent similar losses in the future. It's a national issue. Our elected representatives in Congress and the General Assembly should be crafting and introducing the needed corrective bills and regulations now. For example, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission should include not just representatives of utility companies, but property rights and environmental science representatives.
Amen to that.
Amended laws should protect private property owners and the public trust in natural resources from speculative ventures that, after thorough environmental and economic analyses, cannot be shown to be in the public interest. And existing laws, such as the Endangered Species Act and the National Environmental Policy Act, which I worked with Senator Scoop Jackson to write and help lobby through the Congress in 1969, should be enforced in pipeline application situations. Let's get down to some legal basics. Our federal Constitution provides that no one shall be deprived of their property without due process of law, nor shall private property be taken for public use without just compensation. Note the words public use. Takings for private profit against the will of the owner are certainly not authorized by our Constitution. And our state Constitution states that it is the policy of the Commonwealth to protect its waters from pollution, impairment, or destruction. Is the state of Virginia protecting its waters from pollution?
No.
No. Look at the Brown Roanoke River. How can we advertise our Blue Way when it doesn't exist? My qualifications to speak on this issue include my professional education in fisheries and wildlife biology and natural resources economics, my lifelong involvement in environmental protection, including being CEO of Defenders of Wildlife, and my years of service on Roanoke City Council and on the board of the Western Virginia Water Authority. As a former Water Authority board member, I know that the water we drink in Roanoke comes in part from the Roanoke River and its tributaries, muddied now by pipeline construction above the intake to Spring Hollow Water Supply Reservoir. Yes, the reservoir does provide a settling basin, and the treatment plant can remove the sediment contamination, but at some additional cost. As a former city councilman and as a city of Roanoke property owner, I'm proud of the city's stormwater management program designed to meet a state-set total maximum daily load water quality goal by keeping pollutants from washing off city streets and properties into the Roanoke River. But of course, I am dismayed that the accomplishment of the goal of the city's multi-million-dollar stormwater management program, paid for by my and all other property owners' stormwater management fees, is being severely retarded by the flow of pipeline mud into the river we've been trying to clean up with our hard-earned tax dollars. And as a professional biologist, I am appalled at what's happening to the river. Not just scientists studying rare species, but all those who enjoy fishing for trout, smallmouth bass, catfish on the Roanoke River have a right to be concerned. We're talking here about the survival of the ecological pride of the Roanoke Basin, the Roanoke log perch. 80% of the world's population of the Roanoke log perch lives in the upper Roanoke River and its tributaries. Badly handled Mountain Valley pipeline construction work on the watershed is threatening their existence. Log perch require a strong flow of clean water to keep silt off their nests, eggs, and larvae. It helps these little guys flip pebbles to find the bugs they eat. Excessive fine sediment smothers fish eggs and the insects the fish feed on. And a continuous flow of pipeline-caused sediment will lodge along the river, be moved along with the next high flow, and continue to cover the fish's nests and food supply, leaving the species vulnerable not just this year, but in years to come. The newly listed candy darter in the New River watershed is similarly vulnerable to siltation. And popular game fish, such as bass and catfish, require clean water as well. I know some question the logic of stopping a multi-billion-dollar gas pipeline to save a little fish. The canary in the coal mine is the role endangered species play in our society today. Their loss weakens the web of life on Earth of which humans are a part. The founder of the science of wildlife management, Aldo Leopold, expressed this relationship as follows. Many of you here know this quote. The last word in ignorance is the man who says on animal or plant, what good is it? If the land mechanism as a whole is good, then every part is good, whether we understand it or not. If the biota in the course of eons has built something we like but do not understand, then who but a fool would discard seemingly useless parts? To keep every cog and wheel is the first precaution of intelligent tinkering. To give you all the flavor of specific observations of log perch habitat loss made by landowners along the route of the pipeline, I will quote from the strong first-hand observations made by Robert K. and Roberta C. Johnson of Bat Mountain. Quote, although the MVP will not cross the South Fork of the Roanoke River, upstream it will cross Bottom Creek and its tributaries multiple times, exacerbating the assessed impact on the Roanoke log perch. This was not recognized in the submittal. Based on this omission and the other information provided below, ESI's biological assessment must be deemed inadequate and cannot be used to satisfy FERC's request for biological data. Section 5.5 attempts to analyze the effects of the project construction and operation on the Roanoke log perch, concluding that the project is likely to adversely affect Roanoke log perch. That's in the ESI initial analysis. However, this conclusion falls short in that it fails to take into consideration that the Bottom Creek watershed and the South Fork of the Roanoke River would be major contributors to the sediment load of the assessed segment of the Roanoke River. The proposed pipeline and associated access roads on Poor and Bent Mountain in Roanoke County, Virginia, are slated to cross tributaries in the Tier 3 Bottom Creek watershed 39 times in just 6.2 miles and will cross wetlands 18 times. Therefore, ESI's assessment does not account for all the short and long-term siltation and sedimentation effects on Roanoke log perch habitat. In addition, the South Fork of the Roanoke River itself is a habitat for the Roanoke log perch, as well as being a popular Class 5 stockable trout water body. Appendix A of ESI's biological assessment does not indicate that the Roanoke log perch in the South Fork of the Roanoke River, and possibly in the lower reaches of Bottom Creek, would be impacted by the project. Remarkably, Appendix B has no map showing the confluence of Tier 3 Bottom Creek in Montgomery County and the South Fork of the Roanoke River, an important consideration because both are major tributaries to the Roanoke River, and as noted above, would be significant sources of siltation and sedimentation due to the MVP crossing the Bottom Creek watershed. Such omissions of data in the assessment are both unacceptable and unprofessional. Regardless, it is clear that the impacts on the Roanoke log perch will be even far worse than those indicated in the ESI's submittal. Therefore, FERC must not only reject ESI's March 2017 biological assessment, but must deny this proposed pipeline route, close quote. I'd say that MVP has never recognized that sedimentation from its work around the South Fork of the Roanoke River and its tributaries creates major impacts on Roanoke log perch downstream, or even that log perch live in the South Fork. In conclusion, I support the Sierra Club's lawsuit filed in the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit that asks the court to vacate Mountain Valley's biological opinion and incidental take statement, which allow construction of the pipe in areas inhabited by the Roanoke log perch and other endangered and threatened species. If Mountain Valley wants to eliminate potential impacts to log perch, all of its activity in the upper Roanoke watershed must be addressed and corrected. All we can hope for now, that so much of the pipeline has been rushed to completion, is that the injunction requested by the Sierra Club and the stop construction order will lead to the adoption of effective means of preventing erosion and siltation from future pipeline construction. We can all hope that there will be a recognition by our elected officials that changes need to be made in the language and in the enforcement of the laws intended to protect private property rights and the public trust in the natural environment. The search for the ideal balance between private enterprise and the common good continues. Dr. Christopoulos will now provide you with additional details, including graphic illustrations of the problem. Thank you.
Thank you.